Hello and welcome to Cinema to the Letter. For this bonus episode, we're announcing our lineup for Season 10, Animation. On regular episodes of Cinema to the Letter, we break down the very nature of cinema, letter by letter. For each episode of a film season topic, we cover 6 films that fit a C for classic, I for indie, N for new, E for egregious, M for masterpiece, and A for atypical. Who doesn't love an acronym, am I right? I am Thomas, and hold on, I'm sorry, right before we started recording, I started having a bunch of my animal friends come over. I was whistling, as I do on my off time. I whistle, and the little birds perch up on my finger. I gotta get them out of here. Guys, you gotta leave. I'm sorry. Go. I can't have you on the audio recording. Get out of here.
Hello. Yes, I'm Bryan. I'm also here. With no bit. I came to this very unprepared.
That's you were busy animating my bit, I think is what the problem is. Yes. You were feverishly drawing. You were drawing live, which is very much a restraint on the animator's wrists, I think, if you really do something. But
was definitely gonna find a way to fit that joke into here somewhere.
I beat you to it. I had a bit, and I stole your running bit. Great start to a season. Welcome everyone. Bryan and I are here with season 10, which we should shout out is coming out around the time of the second anniversary of the show. And this topic of animation was chosen by our patrons over at patreon.com/cinema2letter. You all got to, you Cineus out there, got to vote for our big season 10 topic. And we're very glad with the animation thing, Bryan, especially, right? We've been wanting to talk about animation specifically for so long. We talked about animated movies, but we haven't done a season yet.
Yeah, and we've chosen some really good animated movies, but yeah, dedicating a whole season to it, I think as we were talking about it, there's a lot of variety that you can do with animation as well, not just in different styles, but country of origin and just the history of it. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting ways to sort of go about this topic.
Yes, and we did a lot of deliberation. This is one of the harder seasons definitely to plan out and suss out, but I think the big thing that we wanted to have here is mostly, just movies that were definitely different ideas of what the animation form could be, and mostly stuck to animation. We contemplated some live-action animation hybrids like Roger Rabbit we discussed previously, but we decided we covered that movie. That's the perfect version of that movie. We decided
I did pitch Cool World.
That's true. You did try to pitch Cool World, even though you had a whole Cool World corner where on the Roger Rabbit episode. But we ended up with I think 6 very interesting animated movies here. And we also wanted to make sure that with that variety we were mentioning earlier, we wanted to have at least one 2D animated movie, one stop motion animated movie, one CG animated movie, and one stop motion movie. And we accomplished that. But we also added a couple other interesting different varietals in here. So why don't we get into the list, Bryan? Let's go ahead and list off what our topics for this season will be. Starting on July 8th, the week after this episode, this little mini episode comes out, we will be doing our C for Classic, which is the original Fantasia from 1940. Now the oldest film we've ever covered in the C for Classic slot.
Interesting. Yeah, a beloved movie of mine. I love that movie so much. And I think, we were talking a lot about which Disney movie, because I think you have to fit a Disney animated film into here.
Particularly the C for Classic, 99% of the options were Disney.
Yeah. And I think picking one of those is a bit tricky, because some of them, obviously we covered Sleeping Beauty, but a lot of the other ones are so canonical and so classic that it's kind of hard to talk about them. But I think with Fantasia, what you also have is kind of a movie that is unlike anything else. obviously Disney tried to do it again. We'll talk a bit about it on that episode, but just a completely unique kind of movie as well. So that's also kind of makes it really interesting as a choice.
Also very innovative for the time for a lot of reasons we'll get into on that episode in particular. Not just for animation, but for cinema in general. But we move on July 15th. We'll have our Eye for Indie episode, which will be about The Secret of Nim from 1982, Don Bluth's directorial debut, which will be very interesting, especially considering the history of why that movie's an indie. Yeah, it's also interesting because you haven't seen any Bluth stuff, right?
No, I feel like I caught bits and pieces of them on like TV at some point when I was a kid, but I've never seen a full one of his movies, or one of his movies in full. So yeah, I'm very excited to also get into that because I know a bit about his history and I've obviously seen some of the Disney movies he worked on, but yeah, very excited.
Then our next episode, our N for New, on July 22nd. The N for New episode will be devoted to Turning Red, which we wanted to do like a CG anime movie, obviously, and we really wanted to do like a Pixar in particular because we've only talked about Pixar on the Patreon about Toy Story, but we wanted to divulge a bit more, and we figured Turning Red, especially in terms of like the N for New crop of Pixar movies, is definitely the shining beacon amongst not the best selection of other movies.
Yeah, most of the other ones are middling to just bad. Um, and yet it is kind of, for a lot of reasons, what we want to see from Pixar. They corrected this after the fact, but the fact that they just didn't put it into theaters is just insane. And yeah, it's a great Pixar choice, and is kind of the same thing with Disney, where a lot of the other Pixar movies that we could have done feel very overly discussed in a lot of ways. So this will be really interesting to talk about one of their newer releases.
Yes. Then on July 29th, our E for egregious choice. We thought long and hard. As we mentioned, Cool World was discussed. There were many fights over Cool World potentially being a topic here. But we instead decided to go with Mars Needs Moms from 2011. A very odd choice, because like with like E for egregious animation, we'll definitely talk about this, I think, in the episode proper, but we were really determined just not to get a shitty kids movie. Because there are so many shitty kids movies we could have done, like regular shitty kids movies. As opposed to Mars Needs Moms has like elements of a shitty kids movie, but also has the entire destruction of an entire animation art form at its feet as well. So it's a really weird, fascinating bomb of a movie that I've seen. You haven't.
No. I remember when it came out though, and I remember just not being interested just based on the title, which is just like what? Um but yeah, I'm very excited to talk about the whole motion capture thing, and specifically obviously Zemeckis' place in that and where it's at now and stuff like that. So yeah, and a very interesting choice that I don't know if I'm excited to see it, but I'm intrigued to see it.
Yeah, there'll be some interesting things to talk about there. But we move on August 5th, our M for Masterpiece episode, which we had to put a Miyazaki on here. We had to put a Studio Ghibli on here. Bryan would have killed me if we didn't. And I also went along with it because I'm also a fan of those movies, and they're wonderful, and they make me cry. Whatever. But the one we're specifically talking about is an under-discussed one, I think we both agree. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind from 1984. The second Hayao Miyazaki feature film, and right at the start of sort of his Studio Ghibli era. And this movie kicks ass, and I'm glad to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, we could have picked any Miyazaki. They are all masterpieces in my opinion. But I think doing one of these, which is one of the more under discussed ones, that I don't know, all of his movies feel canonical in some way, but this one does feel like it goes under the radar a lot of the times when people talk about Miyazaki. I mean, and yeah, it's a masterpiece like all of his movies are. So,
and then finally, on August 12th, our animation season ends with our A for Atypical choice, our stop motion choice, Fantastic Mr. Fox from Wes Anderson, who just put out a movie recently we both saw together, The Phoenician Scheme, which was quite fun. And yeah, I'm excited to talk about his animation stuff, especially as the atypical thing in particular being like a live action director doing animation. There's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, and I mean, not to spoil that episode or anything, but a perfect movie, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
That I love and I could watch literally at any point of the day. And for a director like Wes Anderson, who, you know, I just think is incredible and is one of the greatest working filmmakers. Yeah, it'd be fun to talk about that movie and uh, what a fascinating movie that is too.
Yes. So just to repeat one more time for all you out there, the lineup for this animation season are C for Classic on Fantasia, the original will come out on July 8th. Our I for Indie on The Secret of Nim will come out July 15th. Our N for New episode for Turning Red will come out July 22nd. Our E for Egregious episode on Mars Needs Moms will come out July 29th. Our M for Masterpiece episode on Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind will come out August 5th. And then our A for Atypical Choice, Fantastic Mr. Fox, that episode will come out on August 12th. And, that's all on the main feed, but we're still doing stuff on the Patreon there, Bryan. Patreon.com/cinema, number 2 letter. Where, like I mentioned, you all Cineas ended up picking this particular season, and we really appreciate you all having that choice. But also, we'll be doing some stuff like reviews for movies currently in theaters. It's the summer movie season, Bryan. I'm sure we'll be talking about some stuff like we recently did at the time of this recording, our Mission Impossible Final Reckoning / Final Destination Bloodlines audio review. And there's a bunch of stuff in June. We haven't really nailed down which one we're going to do for that, but that would have already come out by the time this episode it's been put out there. But along with that, we'll also be doing Marco Polo, the show I do with Tori, that's very animation focused. Speaking of which, and there's also our trip to Hollywood Studios, which will be up there currently. Our bonus podcast for June, which was a lot of fun. We talked about that very movie themed park. And also, we'll have a theme park video rabbit hole. We'll be returning to that once again with some appearances from Mr. Michael Eisner, of course, a fan of, a big patron saint of this podcast, clearly. And then also, we'll be talking about in July, our big bonus podcast will be Back to the Future full franchise for the 40th anniversary of that. So a lot of stuff over there on the Patreon, so much stuff, and it's just for that $1 if you want to become a cineast, or $3 for individual pieces of audio, all sorts of stuff to hear more of Bryan and me gabbing. But on that note, we're going to wrap up this little bonus episode by thanking some people like Burial Grid for our music for the show. Purchase music at burialgrid.com. Thanks to Michelle Kyle for the artwork for our show. Find her at MishKyle96 over on Twitter. And find us on whatever hell site you're perusing at cinema number 2 letter. And you can find me over on usually Letterboxd and Blue Sky at Not the Who's Tommy is where I'm mainly doing.
Yeah, and honestly, at this point, I am basically just on Letterboxd. I have a Blue Sky, but I never use it. So yeah, just follow me on Letterboxd. Honestly, it's the place to be.
It is the place to be. It's the one social media platform that hasn't been corrupted yet. Can't wait for that to happen. But for more of us, you can find us on Apple Podcasts or other podcasting platforms. If you're listening on Talk Film Society, why not listen to all the other great shows here on the network? And you can dig into the archives on our Podbean main feed for, all 9 previous seasons of Cinema to the Letter and all the old double-edged Double Bill stuff, all over there for you to listen to. And nothing else, if you can't support us on the Patreon, money can be tight, we get it, that's cool. But the free way to help us out is to rate, review, or simply share the show around to give us more visibility. Have people watch our very animated movements on the podcast, which they can't see. But boy, we're spending a lot of money animating stuff right now. There's so much elaborate, beautiful animation going on, 2D even, and they can't see it, Bryan. We really need to rebudget the Patreon money, I think. Not do that anymore. But on that note, we'll just go ahead and tease once again. Fantasia will be our C for Classic to kick off the animation season. That'll be coming out next week. But until then, everybody, Bryan, you gotta put your pencils down. Like your hands are cramping. I know I've been doing this elaborate musical number while we've been doing this. I've been dancing and all this other shit on the podcast, but you can't keep animating like this, Bryan.
Really is a strain on the animator's wrist to animate live.